Hello, everyone. It's Dr. Brian again, the owner of Libertyville Wellness Group, and today I have with me Phil Gafka, the owner of Leap Associates. He's been a mentor of mine and my business coach for the last several years. He's been part of very large companies to very small companies, and now he's been coaching for how many years, Phil?
Year 12.
Year 12. That's pretty awesome. So he always helps me get through some good times, some bad times. So I thought he'd be a great some words of influence and maybe some words of wisdom to help us in these uncertain times. So with your clients that I'm sure are inevitably calling you right now, where do you start when you're talking to people about this type of downturn?
Well, got clients all across the board. You've got those that are doing very well, and because of the industry that they're in, they should hold up well. And you have others, as an example, the restaurant industry. I also have a client that supplies the restaurant industry. They're already down a large percentage of business. So you got to take them, try to meet them where they're at and ask them, okay, what's it look like getting through to the other side? And then help navigate that path of how they're going to get from here to that point. I mean, there is a path forward. It's going to be tougher for some than others, but you got to have a good attitude about this. You have to care for your people, and if tell your team, somehow, some way, you're going to get through this. It's tough. You have to make some. You can't make perfect decisions. You can make the best decisions that you can make at that moment. And as information or situations change, you'll make another decision. But you've got to make those that allow the business to survive first. Because if the business doesn't survive, then nobody has a job. So it's just
How
meeting
would
them
you
where
encourage
they're
people?
at.
I'm sorry. How would you encourage somebody to build their business to be more adaptable as a whole or as a unit?
Well, first you've got to look at the financial side. You have to know your numbers. If you're just hoping or guessing, that's probably not a good place to start. So being adaptable is knowing what is possible, and then you realize you can operate at some percentage of your normal revenue. Well, you have to know what that percentage is, and you have to then understand how far you are from that today, and how can you bridge that gap. To think you want to go back to the revenue numbers you have, that's nice. That may happen down the road, but it's probably not going to happen right at that moment. So how do you identify the gap, and how do you bridge that the best?
And then you mentioned team, and I think team right now and building your squad is probably the most important thing in my professional opinion. But how do you help people navigate that both in a downturn like this, and then as they're starting to ramp up to build something that can help them moving forward?
Well, first of all, let's take the downturn first. Most companies and organizations, their successes are due to a number of factors, and one of them is their people. And so you have to be very honest with your people about where you're at and how you're going to handle this, and what you're going to be able to do and what you're not going to be able to do. Talked with a client yesterday. He told his people, I will choke first before I let anybody go. And that was his way of let his people know he's going to do everything he can, because each one of those employees is important, and he is going to need them on the other side when we come through this. So if he has to make a financial move, if there has to be something, as an example, salaries cut or benefits cut for a time period, his policy, and I agree with it, is open and honest as you can be, and letting your people know that they are important, and that this is a challenge for all of us, and that as that owner or as that leader, you're going to do everything in your power to get everybody through it. Not an easy place to be, but that's really the goal.
And then on the back end of this, I guess there are certain industries that are going to be hiring. There are certain industries that are going to be trying to add people on, and the unemployment rate is ballooning at this point. So what advice would you give to those interviewers or interviewees on how to maybe stand out in a crowd?
Well, I think that when you stand out in a crowd, it's because you match that opportunity. A lot of people are going to be scrambling right now, looking for that. But are you looking for a job, or are you looking for a career? If you're looking for a job, then pretty much anything will suffice. If you're looking for a career, you've got to be a lot more strategic about the organization, what they're trying to accomplish, how your talents will fit, And also then, is there a cultural fit between that organization and you? Because you may find a great opportunity, but if it doesn't fit, if your culture doesn't match the organization's, if you're not on the same page, it's not going to last for the long term, nor is it going to be successful for either party. So, I mean, if I'm going to talk one thing that both sides, I think, should be concerned with is that fit. Not so much the skills and the knowledge, but do they fit how you want to do what you're going to do?
I mean, you talked to me several times about making sure that we're all on the same page as a team, as a unit, as a whatever you want to call your business structure. Could you kind of elaborate that for some of our viewers?
Sure, I think there's two major components for that. If you want people to be engaged with you, and unfortunately, the national statistics run something around 1/3 of employees that are actually engaged with what they do. Another 65% are disengaged, and then the other 10% is basically actively disengaged. They shouldn't even be there. But the way, if you're looking at engagement and there's a lack of it, you have to look at, okay, where do we need to start? If you want employees to be engaged, you have to give them something to engage with or to. So that to me would be the vision for the business. Some people call it the mission. I call it the vision because I think it should be something bigger than you already are. It should be, the vision should be something you and your organization aspire to achieve or a place to get to. So if you want people to sign on and in essence roll along with you, where do you want them to go with you? And a lot of organizations need to get very serious and very honest about that. So it's something that can be understandable and that can, when people hear it the first time, they go, you know what, I want to be part of that. So I think vision is a key component. The second I've already mentioned is the culture. How are we going to get there? And that very clear understanding of what those value points are or those culture points are, and not just words or terms, but what are the meanings behind it? As an example, work with a lot of groups on this, and a word that comes to mind often is they want to deal with a high level of integrity, which is great. But you have to understand how are you going to define that word? And if you have 10 people in your organization or 100, you can't have 10 or 100 different variations of that word. You all have to be operating under one definition of that phrase or that word or that term. So really getting serious about how you're going to do your business. And when I looked at, again, a lot of clients, they've given that a fair effort, but not a real good effort. It's got to be so clear in their mind, and it's got to be inspiring enough that people that they're interviewing right now, I don't want a job, I want to be part of what you're doing, and that's the most important part. So you're getting the right people for the right reasons, and they can start rowing with you immediately to get you where you're trying to go to.
Another topic which helped me a lot when we first started meeting, which was several years ago, was your explanation of how to draw people into your little elevator speech. I believe you called it like hooks and stories. Could you kind of elaborate on that and how to get people's, because there's going to be a lot of people trying to sell at the end of this, and the gates, once the gates open. So maybe help them kind of stand out.
Sure. Well, I think when you look at that elevator speech, a lot of people concentrate on what they do. And to me, that's really not what differentiates people from others. If I look at the Northern Illinois market, there's something in excess of 40,000 attorneys in Northeastern Illinois. So with that many attorneys, and there are different areas of specialization, but I would think with that vast number, it's going to be hard to really differentiate yourself based upon what you do. So the how you do your thing or why you do it, those are truly the points that make you unique. And when you're giving a short presentation in front of a group of, what you do, I think you want to gear it more toward how you do what you do versus the what, and you want to make it a little provocative. If you're giving a little elevator speech that sounds like everybody else's elevator speech that does what you do, people tend to tune off. If it sounds too generic, if it sounds too much like blah, 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 people aren't listening, they tune off. So to say something a little more provocative, to get that person to think, I mean, the best reaction you want from someone is, hey, that's interesting, tell me a little more about that. So if you can be provocative with your statement, if you can be different and if you can resonate with that person, that to get them to ask you more about what you do. That's really the main goal here, is to strike up a conversation. And I think it's hard to do when you sound like everyone else. I think it's a lot easier to do when you put part of yourself out there as far as how you do it and what makes you truly different.
Always great advice. So you recently wrote a book, Phil. So everybody can find it. What's the title of your book and where is it available?
Oh, I can even show, it's Hole-in-One Leadership, 9 Steps Guaranteed to Get You Results. And being that it's a golf theme, to me there's always been a lot of similarities between the game of golf and leadership, because leadership starts with you. You can't lead yourself well to where you want to go. It's going to be very hard to lead others. And so I look at it as to start off, a very individual thing, a very individual challenge, just like the game of golf. You know, you're out there in the course, you've got the ball, the club, and you. And you hit the good shot or you don't hit the good shot. And same thing with leadership. It's all on your shoulders to start. As the leader, you get to go first. So I've broken that out into 9 chapters, which would be the front 9 for those of you that are into the game of golf. And even if you're not, I have a glossary on the back, so we try to define those golf terms for you. But I tried to put a little different spin to it. There's something in the area of 40,000 books on leadership. If you Google that, or if you hit it on Amazon, you'll come up with about 40,000 titles. So I figured I wanted to put a little different spin on it so that at least has a little different take on what leadership is. But again, it keys into things we've just been talking about here. Is you got to first start off with where you're trying to get to and how you're going to get there.
So I'm going to guess quite a few business owners are tuning in at this point. So what would be your website? Where can they find you?
Website is www.leapcoaching.com. And LEAP is an acronym for Leadership for Enterprises and Professionals. My email, should you want to reach out, is phil@leapcoaching.com. And if you prefer the phone, I'm at 847-212-4903.
Perfect. Any parting words of wisdom, Phil? Any endpoints?
I think for all of us that are being a little challenged right now, I think that if you're in business, you're going to be affected by this. And you don't have to have all the answers, but you've got to be asking yourself the right questions, because it's a very fluid situation. It's changing in some cases hour to hour. And what you should be expecting out of yourself, and I think what your people are expecting out of you, is you're going to make the best decisions that you can make, not the perfect ones. So you're going to have to be content to some degree with making really good decisions, really good hard decisions, and know that you did your best in answering those, and then find that way to move forward.
So everyone, just remember to like, comment, share, especially with other business professionals. But I think there's some things in here that everybody could take away, whether you're currently unemployed or employed, or maybe thinking about getting more aggressive so that you can be in the business owner's shoes next time. Phil is a great person to have a cup of coffee with, see what he can do for you, see what he can do for your corporation business. I can't express how much he's helped me throughout all these years. So thanks again, Phil, and then we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Take care.